So I have an Excel system here from our Micro-Vu range, and I'm going to show you a little bit about how it works with the new software. This machine here is capable, or these machines are capable of measuring all the way up to 2.5 meters and down to about 250 millimeters. This is a gantry system, but we do have benchtop systems available as well. So what you see on screen is a Vertex 311 series, so it's around 315 millimeters by 315 millimeters. But the only difference really between that system and the gantry system that I've got to my left is the size. The software and accessories are all identical along with its capabilities. So I've set off a program to run on this machine. This is a component from one of our fixturing systems for a bespoke application. And what it's going to do is it's going to run around the part, and it's just going to measure a lot of features that I have extracted from the CAD system. You can see on the screen that there is a CAD file that we're actually measuring it from, and I'm going to go through a little bit later to tell you how we went about doing that. But we're also able, as you can see, to go and collect a touch probe, and the touch probe will come along and also measure some items and features that we can't measure with just a straight vision probe. You'll notice that all of this information is a lot more readily visible on the screen, which is a really nice feature of the new software. And this is just going to continue on now to measure the rest of the part. And there we go. The program is now finished. So what we're going to do is we're going to take you through a couple of the features of the new software to give you a little bit of a flavor of how the new Inspec works. So now to move on to the user interface for Inspec. So the software has a lot of similarities with Inspec Classic, which some users who are watching today may seem quite familiar with. But the general principle is it's all centered around this main screen in the center. At the moment we have this as our camera, so this is our primary probe, which we can move around, and you can see I'm using a joystick on the screen to actually move around on. But one of the nice things about this software is I can actually swap this main screen with another view. So on the bottom left hand corner here I've got my CAD file or my CAD view, and I can bring that into the center and I can manipulate that instead. Now the camera window is moved to the bottom left. I can still move it and it's still live, so I can still move around as if I would do normally, and so they all work independently of one another. I can also bring the results window, so if I want to look at all of my GD&T and my surface definitions here, I can bring this window into the fore as well and increase things like the magnification of what I'm looking at. So that's a really nice little feature in the new Inspec software. In general then, on the left hand side, this list of features here is our features tree. So this is everything that we will measure. We measured this in sequence, so at the very top you've got all your run control. We can reset the playback and press go and it will run through our program. All of these parts, as you can see here, can be named as and when you will and pulled directly off of the CAD, which I will show you in a very short while. At the top of the screen we have all of our features that we can construct, this being things like your coordinate systems, your spheres, your cylinders, lines, points, circles, everything of that ilk. In the middle, in red, we have all of our constructions, so if you want it parallel or an intersection point, you create it through these buttons. And then everything in green is all of our vision tools, so our circle tools, our best fit points, our focus points are all in green. A new feature of the new software, Inspec software, is the addition of specific GD&T, geometric dimensioning and tolerancing features, which are also brought in to the fore, and also the use of an importing of a CAD element such as a step file. On the right hand side then we have our digital readout on the top right hand corner, coupled with our lighting control. Micro-Vus have 3 different lighting configurations. We have backlight, we have top light, and we have what's called coaxial light. So backlight, as you can see, as we change this slider, will move up and down. You can see that the lighting has changed. For the top section here, you can see that we've got a slightly different view in our camera window, but the top light can also be segmented into different quadrants or indeed different rings, and this will give us different lighting conditions and different edges on our component to allow us to accurately select the features that we want to measure. Finally, we also have something called coaxial. This is a light which goes directly down through the lens and bounces straight back up again. This is an excellent lighting condition for looking at planes which are orthogonal to our camera. And you can see here what we can visualize on the camera are the cutting marks that we've applied to this part during machining. And whilst it looks like very rough in the view of axial light, in top-down light, it looks slightly different, but gives you a good idea. Further down on the right then, we also have all of our result windows. This is also where we would be adding things like tolerances and nominals. It's all controlled on the right-hand side. What we have at the moment is a positional or a GD&T tolerance, so we're adding segments to our tolerance configuration, and then we are applying some parts or some features to that. And you can see from our features list anyway, each of these positions will be in and out of spec depending on where they are, and you can see that our true position here is showing us out of spec for this particular part. And then again, down the bottom right is another window that we can use to swap to and fro in the main window, which makes this very flexible in terms of what we want to look at the time. We're now going to look at one of the key features of the new Inspec software, which is the ability to import and extract information from a CAD model. So I've started off just by setting a temporary datum on the part, which will allow us to bring in the CAD file and align it much more easily. So I've got that set up, and what I do to bring it in is I go up to the top right hand corner here and I bring in import CAD element, which brings up the configuration on the right hand side. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click import CAD file and find a CAD file that I'm going to be using for this. Step files are the only ones that it can bring in at the moment, so that is a consideration to keep in, and we press open. So you can see immediately that I've brought the CAD file for this component into the work area. Now it's not aligned correctly, so we've got some tools on the right hand side to allow us to set the orientation of this component. So the first thing we're going to do is set the level, and I know based on what you can see on the machine itself, this is the surface here that we're going to use. So we can orient it around using the compass. I can click on here and I can align to this plane. You'll notice that it's gone the wrong way up, so that we can just go over to here and press flip axis and it will give it to us in the right orientation. So that's the first aspect. Now, next step is to set our X direction, but luckily we've actually already got our X direction aligned. So the way we would normally do that is select another feature like this line here and set skew X plus, which is the same workflow, just that we don't need to do it here because it's already aligned. And then finally we want to set the origin, and we want to choose, in this case at least, this feature here, this circle around the outside of our component. It's important to choose this one because this is also the position of our Z origin as well as our X and Y, and we're going to choose to align to the whole circle. And that is it. We have now brought in our CAD file and it is aligned to our work coordinate system. Now the nice thing about this is that we can then right click on the CAD at any point and we can move here. You'll notice in the bottom left hand corner that our vision camera system has moved to that location. Another nice little feature of this is that you can also use this feature to move here down in a Z position, so it also knows where it is in focus, so we'll move across and it will also move down in focus as well. This is a really nice little feature, so instead of you having to drive around the component manually, you can now use the CAD file to move around individually the component by right clicking and going move here. We can still swap all of our screens around, so I can still go into this camera view and be able to change my magnification as you would normally, but it does give you a very useful and very easy to use way of moving around your model. So now we're going to extract some of the geometry from the model itself, and the way we do that is to ensure that we have our import mode on. So what we can do with that, once it's on and we click on, we highlight the parts on the CAD model, you can see that we can select some of the features. So I'm going to select this circle right here, and you'll notice that as we're trying to import it, we can import it both either as a single circle, and you can see it's been highlighted as such, or two separate radiuses instead. So in this case, at least anyway, we're going to conjoin them together and import them just as one circle. So when I click that, on the left hand side you can see that we've created a new circle feature called 26, and then this purple dashed line is telling us that that has not yet been defined, which is what we need to do following this. So we're going to bring in all the CAD geometry that we want to start with. So I'm going to select a few more features. So I'm going to select this here and this here and bring those both in as radii, and then I'm going to select this plane here and bring that in as a plane. So you'll notice that I've created these features on the left hand side. All the nominals for those features come in with from the CAD model itself. But as you can see, as we're going around now, once we look at these features on the left, Inspec is wanting us to define those features. The first one is 26, so what we can do, having known last time, is we can right click and move here on the CAD, and we can bring the window for the camera into the foreground and select a correct lighting condition for this particular feature. So what we're going to do is we're going to use, in this case, what's called a best edge, and select that as a single point on that edge there. So we need at least 3 more points for this circle. However, what we can do is we can right click, copy and transform, and we can then do a circular pattern instead. So in this case I can just do count and span, so I'm going to create 6 points which are equispaced around the circumference of the part, and press OK. You'll notice that automatically it's created the other 5 points for me, and then it's moved on to feature 27 on the left hand side. In the Inspec CAD view you can see that it's selected and highlighting the next one that we need to do, which is this feature down here. So what we're going to do is we're going to right click, we're going to move here, and again we're going to select a lighting condition which is suitable, and you'll notice that I don't have to bring the camera window up into the main ground. I can just select, for instance, an F-scan arc and go 1, 2, 3 in the bottom left. You'll notice that the tool immediately disappeared because it's waiting for me now to finish the next part, which you can see is highlighted here on the CAD model. So I'm going to right click, move here with the CAD and choose 1, 2, 3 and that's my feature done. So the next one is a plane, and instead of using the vision probe, which I can use, I'm instead going to use one of the touch probes that we've got. So in the top right hand corner here we've got the active sensor, which is currently vision, and we've got a number of options based on what's currently installed on the machine. I'm going to go and grab this one, which is a standard TP20 1mm by 40mm ball. And as it's doing that, you'll notice that the screen down the bottom left hand corner where the camera used to be is now a visualization of our touch probe. Now our touch probe is in the back right hand of the machine. I'm just going to go right click, move to, and this allows us to bring up a dialog so we can move to some coordinates sort of manually. So here I'm going to move to the X00, and then I'm going to move to 50mm above the coordinate system and press OK. Once it does that, the touch probe will automatically be brought into view. Now, one of the nice things about the CAD view window is that it shows you, or it projects the Z position, or the position of the touch probe above the part, so you can see where it is going to be, because it can be quite a little bit difficult. But you'll notice that the CAD also now includes a visualization of the touch probe itself, which is very handy to see. So here what we're going to do is we're going to create a probe point here, and what that allows us to do is we can just create probe points around the circumference of the part. And you'll notice on the left hand side here, I've made a bit of a mistake, but that's not a problem, is that it's taking those 3 points. What I failed to do was press a little button up here called adding more inputs, so I can add more than 3 inputs to this point here, to this plane. So if I now press remeasure, the probe will automatically go and measure that plane at the points that I have positioned. Simple as that. Another really useful little feature of this Inspec software is something called automatic geometry detection. This is where we can extract information directly from what the camera is seeing rather than a CAD file. So what I've done on the software is I have placed it into a position where we can see just some of the features which you can see in front of us, and there's a button at the top here called automatically detect geometries. If I click it, it brings up a number of lines that it sees as potential candidates for geometry, and you can see we don't want them all, but I can select these 3 here. So I can select, select, select. And you'll notice that as I've selected it, I've already measured it. So this feature here has already been measured using an F-scan line, which is a feature tool. So if I move here, you can see this is the tool that it's created automatically for me to go and measure that feature. So I can move over here, slightly further across, press the button again, and maybe I want that feature, and that feature, and it's already created me these 3 features on the left, and already created feature scans for that feature. So I can remeasure those, and this is what it would happen within the program itself. And you see that happen very quickly because it automatically realizes that you can see all 3 of those features in one shot. The Sempra Group offers services to help you leverage the Micro-Vu systems. So initially we can do contract measurement to allow you to take advantage of the resource that we have here at Sempra and measure your components for you. If you were to take on a system like the Micro-Vu, we can support through a whole turnkey solution. So we can write the programs for you, conduct the gauge R&R studies, and deliver you a program and component ready to go straight off the bat. Part of that service as well is doing bespoke fixture designs, and now we also have a product called Smart Fixtures, which should be showing now, which is a system to allow you to get really good compliance on your components while leveraging the speed of swapping over components very, very quickly. It will also allow you to look a whole 360 degrees around the part in question, which means the operator involvement of going back and turning the parts over is completely just removed from that process. All of these services really help to leverage the technology that is a Micro-Vu system. And for Inspec Classic users, you'll notice that the best feature by far on the new Inspec is the fact that we now have an undo button, or a Control-Z for super users, if that's where you're inclined. So now that that's over, thank you very much for listening. We'll now take your questions.